we're running into right now is the other thing is Canada. When they have no quarrels of ships going through, they just want to have to say, okay, when you want to bring your warships through, particularly the warships, we want to, you have to ask our permission. That's what we're asking for. We're not asking for a lot really, and I don't think anybody really has a problem with that. The other thing is with we already do is have American submarines and warships constantly go through our waters. I mean, you might as well say this is one people. Like we're one people. We have we're got Canadian values here, American values here, but is there really that much difference? Whiskey, beer, is there really that much difference? Yes, and there's again the Americans don't want to. They're starting to soften up because they're to the idea of the Arctic sovereignty claim for Canada because they know we're going to work out a deal anyway that they can move through, and we don't have the warships like they have. So we have the icebreakers, but they don't have the warships. So we don't mind them being out there. And some Canadians will say, yeah, it's a loss of Canadian sovereignty, allowing the Americans to have their submarines and stuff like that. Yes, but going back to like the Cold War with NORAD and stuff like that, I mean, this holds off Russia. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying the Canadians do, but they've got the military to do it. They've got the Navy to do it. So our interests are mutual. It's not a loss of sovereignty in that sense. Now, once we get 21 ships coming out of here, some ships are a little bit late. But once they do start coming out, I mean, the upgrades that the Canadian military has been making since the Harper years, some people say, okay, well, we're wasting too much money on the military. Not equipment-wise. I mean, I'm against sending our guys over here, and stuff like that, and all. We don't need to be over there. Just take that money and put it towards what we need to get done. We do need really good warships. We do need a huge submarine fleet. Maybe not huge, but we need at least 2 submarines here, 2 submarines up here, and 2 submarines here. That's what we need. And I think the Virginia-class submarine would be an excellent submarine for Canada. To have that, or duplicate the submarines we have now, which, despite all the problems, that's the problem when you get by hand-me-down stuff and unproven technologies and stuff like that. But you might as well say the Victoria Upholder class submarines now are pretty much state of the art. They are really good. It's just with the exception of Corner Brook, which had a big fender bender, the Windsor, the Victoria, and is the Halifax, the Corner Brook, Windsor? No, sorry, the Chicoutimi. Is it Chicoutimi? What was the one that caught fire on the way back from England? I think it's the Chicoutimi. Yeah, the Chicoutimi, the Windsor, the Victoria, and the Corner Brook. I think those are the 4 upholder class submarines, which are really great intercoastal submarines. They're perfect for that. They're not too big, so they'd be okay for the Arctic, as long as they have ice-breaking capabilities. I mean, even the biggest of submarines can usually only break through max like 6 inches to a foot of ice, maybe 2, depending on the depth of the ice. Like the Russian submarines are designed to come up through the ice and launch. But even at that, that's a risky business coming up through the ice, you know what I mean, with a submarine. But we do need them. We need at least 6. So we have 4 that typically spend about 100 days each year at sea, with the exception right now of Corner Brook, which is probably still in repair. But again, I'd rather cut the funding from those guys and, put it towards the Navy. We really need to start protecting that coastline. Now, let's say, because Canada did 40 different areas of research to make this claim. And, the deadline was yesterday, the day before, to make this claim, for the Arctic. Now, why the deadline was there, that I don't know. I haven't been following it enough. I've watched a bit on it, but, this is a huge topic. But there's the reason why they're making these claims, the reason why they're using the UN, which I don't really approve of the UN, stuff like that. They're also utilizing maritime law. That's where the use it or lose it comes in. That's why people were, like, for example, none of it. The reason why people live up here is because if you have any one of this area vacant for 6 to 8 months, it's no man's land. Therefore, anybody can claim it. Hence why we have people living up there. And it's cheaper to have people living up there than to station the military up there, so to speak. A lot of politics there. No use digressing into that. So, but the idea here is to make the claim, okay, so that we don't get to where these guys are right now, which I don't think we will because of the parties involved. Iceland and Canada has never, or Greenland and Canada has never had any quarrels with each other. Norway and Canada, it's like, to me, like Norway is a country that like mirrors Canada an awful lot, even though they're that far away. There's a lot of commonalities between all these countries, and even Russia has some commonalities to Canada. And when people in the north, the people of the north are kind of the people of the north. They're not really, they're a different breed of people, and they're usually very, very, very peaceful. But it's the people in Moscow, the people in Ottawa. Don't know what the capital of Greenland is. What is the capital? I don't know. But anyway, and whatever the capital are. So you want to make sure that those people don't get us into something stupid. Would we ever get into a shooting war with Russia? Well, I mean, Canada, that's not a, I mean, Canada's trained for that for years. I mean, because militarily wise, the Russians are superior in the sense of they have way more military equipment, and some of their military equipment is actually outclassing ours. Now, the problem with a lot of people say, yeah, but our stuff is this old and it's that old. Yeah, but a lot of it gets upgraded. For example, our CF-18s are not like the American F-18s. Ours are hot rodded, but it's just the airframes are nearing the end of their lives, because they're getting worn out. That's the problem is like, for example, like our CF-18s have like 26,000 pounds of thrust in the engines, opposed to its normal, 20,000 or 21,000. Our CF-18s are very, they're built here in Canada under contract, which is what we should be doing for our new fighter and everything, is just, I say just redesign the F-18, CF-18, and turn it into something a little different, like make it a little bigger to acquire more equipment, so you can, get all the sensitive navigational equipment to get through the Arctic. That's the other thing too. Most CF-18s can't, or F-18s can't go through the Arctic. They're not meant for that, but the CF-18s can, but they have to hang more equipment off them. They're a little bit different. They're the same airplane, but they've been Canadianized, I guess you would say, for what we require. And the pilots here, although the problem is they're second to none, but there's just so few of them. And if you watch Canadian pilots fly, you'll see what I mean. Like they're usually pretty darn good pilots. Would it keep up with would our Canadian CF-18 keep up to an Su-35? I think the better pilot would win. That's the big one. The pilot training is like the training that Canadians get, and you'll see it in any conflict. You'll always hear, like, okay, Canadians are always, they always tend to make do with less, and they always tend to do extremely well. The old UH-1 Bell Huey, which we adopted, and we called it the Griffin. We've hot rodded the engines and stuff. Just watched a thing last night on it, where we're the go-to guys whenever they need an escort with a helicopter. It was a helicopter that we thought, okay, well, it's just not going to do well in Afghanistan at all because of the heat, because of the sand, because of the high altitudes. And here's everybody's calling us up whenever they need an escort. They got to get. And if you think of the Vietnam era helicopter, that's the same helicopter. It's been upgraded to to Canadian standards, to have like a FLIR system on it and stuff like that. And sitting out the side of the helicopter is a guy with a minigun, and the Taliban hate us for that. But that's the thing. Like again, we find our niches. When Canadians are, they maximize their training to, so that numbers don't make as much of a difference. Go to the Battle of Campion in North Korea. That line is held because, a handful of guys basically sat on a hilltop stopping the northern Chinese from coming over in the tens of thousands after they overrun the Irish and the Australians and the British. We held the ground at the time, the Americans were ready to send B-29 bombers to nuke them. If they would have made it to, made it to Seoul, but we held the line, and that was a historical moment for Canada that basically basically stopped World War III. And again, a handful of guys outgunned, outnumbered, and they did it. So with today's equipment, I don't know. But numbers-wise, that's our biggest problem with the Russians, is the numbers. one things the Russians always said, they hated the idea of fighting Canadians because we were tricky. We never followed our field manuals, always trying to trick them. And one thing, whenever you talk to a Canadian soldier, one thing you learn is that they're always taught to think. Think first. You're taught to react, but taught to think, strategize your way through the problems. And that's why the Canadian military is kind of unique to itself. Like there's no other military that kind of trains like that. It's just, we're only got 25,000 guys. But I'm just going to give you a little number. And this is another reason, and Russia probably, understands this as well. Why Canada would be so hard to invade. It's not so much just the gun behind every blade of grass. The High River gun grab, which I'm going to cover that in another video. They also seized ammunition there. They seized about, I don't know if it was 1.5 million rounds or 250,000 rounds. But basically, okay, China's 4 million man army would take, if you had one successful shot, and this is just a small town in Alberta, a very small town in Alberta, down near Calgary, okay? And, that's a handful of residents that had like 250,000 rounds, okay? The whole country is like that. Now, I found out also, Newfoundland has the highest firearms ownership per capita. I never thought, But then again, per 100,000 people, they have the highest ownership in Canada. So, again, there's just so much ammo here. And it wouldn't take long for, Canadians to kind of organize and stuff like that if there was ever an invasion. It's just the big weapons the Canadian military would have to take on, like the tanks, the airplanes, and stuff like that. The helicopters, particularly the helicopters, would be a big thing. The old tanks, the old Soviet T-72s, throw a Molotov cocktail on the rear engine there. Just let the diesel burn it. you know what I mean? All tanks burn. So the old BMP, they're like the Russians make good equipment. Don't get me wrong, but they don't have a lot of new equipment. New equipment, if you go new equipment, they're not that much more advanced than Canada. They really don't have that much more numbers really of new equipment, but their old equipment is just astronomical amounts. But anyway, I digress. But again, Canada and Russia definitely don't want to fight. Canada and the United States definitely don't want to fight. The Russia and the United States is well, with the crazy man in Washington. It's hard to say what this man will do, especially in my next couple of. But anyway, that's the Arctic sovereignty. That's where we're at. That's so. The good news is that. This can hopefully, depending on how the claim is made, and it's going to be more of not how the claim is made, but what the verdict of the claim is going to be for the Arctic sovereignty, and also how others react. I don't imagine Greenland or Denmark is going to react, or Norway is going to react very hostile towards Canada if we get the Arctic. The Americans, they're probably not going to do anything, because again, they don't really care. They just want to be able to use that water for their submarines, and they're more worried about the Russians than they are us. And we've always played well together anyway, for the most part. Canada and the United States has its little disagreements from time to time, but it's really nothing that we can't overcome. But the big one is how is Russia going to now? The diplomats are saying, well, if it's considered Canadian territory, well, we're going to go with that, and that it'll be what it'll be. But will they just let it go? I mean, this is a massive resource. This could really, you got to understand, this is a resource-rich country, and Russia, especially for the gas and oil, they want that. That's 30% of the world's reserve. That's a huge amount. That's a massive amount. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. That's because I can go on forever in a day. But it's another dot, because it becomes another region that could become destabilized, like here. And it becomes another possibility for Flash Japan. Right now, it's you could call it kind of a Cold War, but it's not. It's because, number one, Canada, Russia, Denmark, and Norway are all working together, to kind of, solve this. And I think it was somebody in Greenland said, it's not worth getting into a shooting war. We're going to have to all, let cooler heads prevail and come to an agreement. And whenever you do see meetings, you'll hear people from all four nations have questions and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that, because it is we do need those warships big time. But it is a part of like that. If we get that claim, which I have a feeling we probably will, because of the amount of science we put into it, and they're letting scientists kind of decide where the lines are going to be. So it's not, because the Russians didn't want to come off as it was corrupt or anything like that. That's why it's in the international. They have a referee deciding this. So I don't know how long it's going to take them to decide the claim, but the claims have now been made. So anyway, there we go. Rate, subscribe, definitely share, and if any articles or anything you want to post, go ahead. Okay, so this is going to be the part 2. So the problem that we're running into right now is the other thing is Canada. When they have no quarrels of ships going through, they just want to have to say, okay, when you want to bring your warships through, particularly the warships, we want to, you have to ask our permission. That's what we're asking for. We're not asking for a lot really, and I don't think anybody really has a problem with that. The other thing is with, we already do is have American submarines and warships constantly go through our waters. I mean, you might as well say this is one people. Like we're one people. We're got Canadian values here, American values here, but is there really that much difference? Whiskey, beer, is there really that much difference? Yes, and there's, again, the Americans don't want to. They're starting to soften up because they're to the idea of the Arctic sovereignty claim for Canada, because they know we're going to work out a deal anyway that they can move through, and we don't have the warships like they have. So we have the icebreakers, but they don't have the warships. So we don't mind them being up there. And some Canadians will say, yeah, it's a loss of Canadian sovereignty, allowing the Americans to have their submarines and stuff like that. Yes, but going back to like the Cold War with NORAD and stuff like that, I mean, this holds off Russia. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying the Canadians do it, but they've got the military to do it. They've got the Navy to do it. So our interests are mutual. It's not a loss of sovereignty in that sense. Now, once we get 21 ships coming out of here, some ships are a little bit late. But once they do start coming out, I mean, the upgrades that the Canadian military has been making since the Harper years, some people say, okay, well, we're wasting too much money on the military. Not equipment-wise. I mean, I'm against sending our guys over here, and stuff like that, and all. We don't need to be over there. Just take that money and put it towards what we need to get done. We do need really good warships. We do need a huge submarine fleet. Maybe not huge, but we need at least 2 submarines here, 2 submarines up here, and 2 submarines here. That's what we need.